Welcome to Write Your Narrative, your weekly go-to Sweet Odd podcast.
There's just so much culture and life in South Florida.
Art helped me find myself.
I can sit here and complain that Miami doesn't have any of these things, or I can find a way to do it.
This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
We have changed the conversation.
You're in the right place.
All right, so hi everyone and welcome to the podcast. We are today in Wynwood. We are at the Win 317 studio. Once again, a big shout out to the girls for everything they do at the Win 317 gallery. And my guest today is Max. Max, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
All right, doing excellent. So, you've been around the scene, about the graffiti scene for the longest time. I mean,
Yeah.
When did you actually kind of started?
Well, the graffiti thing, let's put it like this. Miami has always had its street culture.
Yes.
Okay, before it's called hip-hop. Meaning that I got here actually in 74.
Oh,
okay.
Really early.
Yeah, I was a little kid. And I moved to the Alapata neighborhood.
Yes.
76, I moved here to the Wynwood area. Then, but along all that time, we always had the street culture. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Meaning that we had the DJs with the letters. We had crew of DJs.
Yes.
We also had the gang element. We had 34th Street Players. We had, La Familia from New York, which was run into 77.
All right.
That's when they came down from Manhattan, uptown Manhattan. And they moved to this area. They moved to Wynwood, right over there by the Bakehouse, our complex.
Yes.
Right by the Bakehouse. So they moved around there. I have two elder cousins one of them was a gangster. He was down with La Familia. The other one was a graffiti head. He was a graffiti head, plus he was into, like, the new rap language, the early,
hip-hop scene.
The hip-hop stuff, exactly. And that guy, like, by 78, like, the first one came first, and then the other one came in 78. The older brother came first. My eldest cousin came first with the gang stuff. He used to wear La Familia shirt with the letters, with the red, with the skull, with the snakes.
Okay.
And La Familia in the back with the red letters.
I think we still have a mural of La Familia here in Wynwood.
Could be.
Yes,
could be. There were a lot
yes,
of, there was a chapter here.
Yes.
So early on. And you had a whole bunch of gangs. You had Tutu Ave. You had, there was a lot of gangs around.
Yes.
And also like little cliques. There was dancers too. We had a lot of different dancers, meaning that they were more like locking and popping.
Okay.
There was
Popping.
Locking and popping was already here when I got here. That was already established, meaning that there was a street culture.
Yes.
Same thing with the DJs. The DJs would jam at the jams, and people would come out and they would lock, they
Of
pop,
course, yeah.
and do other things, and they would throw themselves on the ground too.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do like sweeps and little things like that. They'll do the worm on the floor,
Yes.
Stuff like that. So that whole culture that part of street culture was around. Now, the other addition that came down was the graffiti.
The graffiti,
Yeah,
yes.
that I wasn't introduced till 78 until my younger cousin, for me, came down from New York.
So at the time you were a DJ, you were DJing at the time, or you were
No.
actually a breaker? You were
No, in 78 I was a little kid.
you were just
I was a little shamak. So I didn't, he's showing me all this stuff, and he pulls out, these photo albums, okay, of him and his boys in New York, uptown Manhattan, chilling in front of the trains, inside of the trains. The insides are destroyed.
They were.
It was a different planet. It was like a million writers. And I was like, what is this? What in the... It was so impactful that I never forgot it, because here you had like little bits and pieces, it was more like gang graffiti, but it wasn't stylized graffiti.
Not yet, yeah.
Yeah, not yet. And then when he came down, I was introduced to that. And it was like, holy Moses, what is this? and then the graffiti pieces. But I was so young that it just left an impression on me. So I would hang out with him as much as I could. I was at elementary school. He was in junior high. And then, like, I would go from the elementary school, which is Buena Vista, right down the street from here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, right down the street. Buena Vista. I would go to Robert E. Lee, which is now called something else. It's in front of the bakehouse, the junior high that's there.
Yes.
It has a different name now.
I mean, it does.
But it's called Robert E. Lee.
At the time, yes.
And I kept following him until he got to high school, you know? And because he had that flavor, I was trying to absorb as much as he could. Now, so I'll tell you the story. He was the first one, the first one to paint on the bakehouse.
Oh,
a lot of people don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know.
What was his name?
RIVSKI.
RIVSKI, okay.
Irving, RIVSKI. So he goes, he tells me, I'm in elementary school. He's in junior high over here at Robert E. Lee. Says to me, hey, come. I'm going to show you. And I go with him, and he starts putting up an outline, with a light color, like a light gray. And he says, look, you use a light color to start illegally.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Back then. And I'm like, what the freak? And then he says, okay, so you see these 3 colors here? I want you to help me fill in here, 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 here. Okay, I said, okay, fine, I'll do that. And then he says, look, let me show you. And he goes back, he pulls back on the can, and then he says to me, this is called blending. This is how you blend colors. Shows me how to blend colors. Then he shows me, okay, look, you get a stronger color. This is called a final outline. Now, mind you, he's left-handed. He has such a straight hand, and mind you, we're talking about, he had stock tips.
Yes, at the time.
And it was like, I'm like, wow, like his hand was just so clean for, because if you're lefty, you're going this way. If you're righty, it's difficult, because you're going across.
Makes sense now, yes.
But if you're lefty, you're leaving everything to the left clean when you're working this way.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people don't realize
No, I never realized that.
Yep. He was notorious for being clean. So, and then he tells me, okay, so this is called a 3D. He shows me how to do the 3D. And then he tells me, oh, this is, let's fill in the background with a light blue color. So the insides were like a sunset color.
Yes.
And then he fills in the background and says, these are called clouds. So he's showing me all the basics early on.
Wow.
He's showing me the stuff at the bakehouse.
At the bakehouse.
Illegally, the first one to paint a piece on there, And from there on, I had the mechanics.
Yep.
I didn't have the skill.
Oh, yeah. It takes a
while. It takes practice.
Yes.
It took me a few years to get there, But by the time 84 rolled around, I was already a beast.
Wow.
Yeah, I was already a monster.
84.
And late 84 going into 85. And then 85, forget it. It was just like, after I got my crew together.
I was going to say, were you part of a crew at the time?
Yeah. So at first, we were all into the breakdance. There was a scene down here.
Yes.
The whole breakdancing scene in the early 80s, with Speedy downstairs. I met, Speedy early on. We have a mutual friend named, and obviously, and then I also had quite a few other teachers in between,
I'm sure.
Besides my cousin. Snake was one of them. HC was another one from New York, from Corona. He was down with the Stone Killers, and they're still around in New York. The Stone Killers. They're from Far Rockaway, Queens.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're still around. Myro knows them. Myro from RIVSKI Crew.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
He knows, like, they're OGs from 80.
The OGs,
yes. OGs, pre-85,
Wow.
Yeah. So all those dudes. And it was funny because we had that mutual, when we were talking, that came up, and we had those mutual friends, and we're like, how do you know about that?
Yeah, you throw a couple of names and say, okay.
You're like, oh, what? Those are friends of mine too.
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. And from way back, because, like, who would know You know, it's you just don't say it, TSK, crew like that, because, and then the other guy who I never got a chance to meet, but I was influenced by was Cool C. Cool C, he was very elusive. He moved around everywhere, but he was part of TC5, and his characters were just like those.
So that was down here in Miami.
Yeah. His characters were like, whoa, like, just them being from New York, my cousin and them and da-da-da. And like, they were all so clean.
Yeah.
It was just like holy Moses, and that's the level that I wanted to get to. I wanted to aspire to get to that level. But obviously, it comes with age and it comes with experience.
Exactly. Experience and practice and practice and practice.
And it took me a little while to get there. It didn't happen overnight because, obviously, like, I was a bomber first.
Oh, yeah.
A bomber, with the wild style tags and all this crazy stuff. And you still see some of that stuff being done by Jose Parla.
Yes.
Which he's having a show. When you see
my
when you see that hairstyle that's like this and all that, that's from over here.
That's why, yes.
Yeah.
This was your schooling.
Yeah. And I had another friend of mine from, he was from Bushwick.
Okay.
Bushwick. And he wrote Zap, and he wrote different aliases. His name was Wilson. And they were part of this other crew called Latin Rockers. They were like B-boys and stuff like that. This is like 80, 81, 82, somewhere around there, Definitely 82. They already had a crew, and they that guy in particular, he already had that Gnome, Gnome,
yes.
GNOME,
okay,
GM7. Anyway, he already had that style, which was like like gel, like the ease that gel does.
Yes,
already in 82.
Oh,
he had that.
Okay, super. Yes,
that
very angled,
very
angled,
very. He already had that style. He had already taught me that style. Yeah, and I was like, "Where are you from?" He's like, "From Brooklyn," and then he had that up rock that a lot of people couldn't do. And those were gems that I treasured, because I kept getting information from different people and piecing it together, and that's what made me, like, I would abstract, like I said in the interview the other day, I would attract like the good traits from different people, and like the hand style and like, something would inspire me to sort of like, okay, da-da-da. And then from very beginning, I was taught to, you see something, you don't mimic it, you don't duplicate it.
No, you don't need
You don't duplicate it, but if you're inspired by it, you can always like flip it.
Yes,
and kind of make it your own.
I can see that. Yes.
Yeah. It's so that way people don't say, oh well, he's a straight copy of so and so and blah blah blah. That sort of thing. I was straight away from that. Does it come like to a certain degree? Like, I hate the fact that I didn't take more pictures back then, and I didn't. I should have been documenting, but in reality, I didn't want people to say, "Oh, he's got all these photos." And
years later,
the street mentality back then. It's sort of like,
imagine. I can't.
But if I would have had good photos of all this stuff that I'm talking to you about, I could have shown you instead of me talking to you about it. There's still people around that they do know, they know the history, and if I put them on the spot, they'll tell you, hey, da-da-da. Same thing with like, Speedy, I met him in 84, but he didn't know the history before that.
Okay.
So when we recently hooked up, Snake was around. I brought Snake around. I found him, and I told it was Chilski, it was Snake, Speedy, and a few other people that were there. And I told Snake, I said, hey Snake, can you tell Speedy what the inside of my cousin's room looked like? And I turned my face, and then Snake says, yo, yo, RIVSKI's room was bombed. It was bombed. Everybody was up. There was graffiti pieces inside the room.
Was it already?
Graffiti pieces inside the room. There was tags up to the ceiling of everybody that came from New York, because we were duplicating tapes from WBLS, 98.7 KISS, all that, WKTU, everything. We were, everybody that came with something. And so we would duplicate the tapes, blah, blah, blah. We would switch. I mean, we would trade. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, oh, you don't have this one? I'll make you a copy. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And then my uncle, which is a great uncle, he told my aunt, because my aunt was a little bit, she was more like, merengue and salsa and whatever. She didn't like the whole, and then he told her, look, cut the BS, okay? I don't want these kids running around and doing all the other BS that these other kids are doing, which was doing really bad things. Yeah. I mean, around here, back then, they were doing a lot really bad things, that I don't want to get into. But he says, I'd rather have them congregate in front of the house, and we would put out the cardboard,
Oh, yes.
Well, cardboard. Listen to me talking about cardboard. This is before the linoleum. We would go to Biscayne Boulevard and get the refrigerator box because it was thicker.
Okay.
And bring it back. And we would set up the boom box with the different tapes, and all the kids that were like that movement.
Yes.
Right in front of the house, bro. Everybody used to come. Everybody. And we would be hanging out in front of the house till like almost midnight. Mm-hmm. Just jamming. And
just like jamming.
And people dancing.
Hard.
And people, sketching and tagging and doing outlines and whatever, what I'm saying? And like,
they had a little black book or whatever.
Connecting, and connecting. Oh, yo, you live here? Yo, ta-da-da, yo, ta-da-da. Oh, let's go over here. Let's, that sort of thing. So it was they were creating like a whole environment, and that's what it was,
Okay, we're here in Miami, but then you talk a lot about those guys from New York. How did you get in touch with all these guys from New York? How did you know these guys from New York?
Because of my cousin.
Okay.
My cousin,
when he came down here. All right.
He was a New York cat.
All right.
So and he would introduce me to them, and I was official. So they were like, "Yo, that's my little cousin."
Oh yeah. All right.
Yo, that's my little cousin.
Okay. Yes.
All right. So he wants to learn graph. So, and that's why I had a lot of good teachers, and I got to see a lot of things. I got to see them painting in action and that sort of thing. And that's where I started learning a lot, and that's why, like, by the time I kept doing my thing, and by the time I was 14, going into 15, I was already
on your way. To stardom.
I was already, way out there.
Yes. So to go about all these crews, eventually you got to meet someone from MSG Crew, which is one of the biggest crew here in Miami right now. So what was the year when you met MSG, or who invited you, or who introduced you to MSG?
Well, I'll tell
if we can tell the story.
I'll tell you the story. So Chrome, I had already seen, I had been seeing Chrome.
Yes.
And Crook and Chrome, that's when they first came out.
Yeah, of course.
Da-da-da-da-da. So I bump into Chrome, and he says to me, he goes, "Bro, I used to look at your shit, right?" And I said to him, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, like the shit that you were doing at Jackson Senior High School, da-da-da-da." He goes, "I used to sit there and study that shit."
No way.
I used to sit in front of your pieces,
yes,
because I was already at that time, early 90s, I was already morphing into doing more portraits and stuff like that, more artistic stuff.
Yes.
And so, which is now considered street art. So,
right.
So Chrome would study that. He's like, how the hell did he do the hair? How did he do the eyelashes? And how to, because we were already cutting out, we were doing the cut, like the stencil tips. We were making those already. We were doing all that. So, and he was just like, how is he, and we were obviously mixing colors too. There were colors, we were mixing colors. Yeah, we were mixing colors. And not only that, what happened was I started working right down the street on 36th Street and 36th Street and almost 17th by Jackson. And so I started working at a paint store there, Best Painters.
Oh,
and they used to carry automotive paint. Now, what happens with that is that they were able to put certain colors,
yes,
in a spray can.
Oh, okay.
So I would get custom colors mixed, and people would trip out. They're like, "What color is this?
Where did you get this
Where
from?"
did you get that color? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was specially mixed.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
And that chrome color that they used, the real chrome, they were used, I guess they were like automobile color too?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We used everything. There was nothing that we didn't use. We used this thing called plastic coat, which actually plastic coat, it's kind of like, how do I say this? It's almost like modern day paint.
Okay.
Yeah. It had that same, it was like acrylic or something, or it was just different. It was like plastic coat.
All right.
It wasn't like enamel. And it didn't go on like enamel. It went on like that other stuff that we use today. Very close to it, but it was thicker.
It was thicker. Yes.
Yeah, it was thicker. So I guess they made it, I think that may have been like the predecessor of it.
Okay.
And they took it and they kept working on it, and now we have like 94 and
yes,
and all that stuff.
Look at it. High pressure, low pressure, and all the tips that you want name it.
Yeah, and those and all that stuff, back then we were looking for all that stuff.
Yeah.
The fat caps, and we used to create our own fat caps, all the tester tips. We used to go out and go to the hobby shops and take them off the actual testers, and then you would put them, and you would put them in xylene to overnight, so that because you could, what I'm saying, man. It was just like that back then,
No, but this is such an incredible
story. But it's funny. What's funny? It like that was part of the fun.
Yeah,
because it was
thrill.
It was an experience.
It must have been.
Now there is no experience. Now everything's store-bought, which is fine.
Yeah, well,
that's fine. Whatever,
course,
Yeah. But the whole experience of going and like to find these tips, and sometimes staying at home and with a razor blade,
chiseling,
to make the thing fatter, that sort of thing, Well, it's an experience that a lot of people don't have anymore. It's kind of like, the equivalent to that would be, since we do vinyl vision, would be playing Serato versus vinyl. It's the same thing.
It is.
Those are two different monsters. Yeah. With the other thing, you download, there ain't no vinyl. You can't, and if you tap, that thing is gonna wobble,
yes.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like if you hit it, the arm is gonna go whoop and make that whoop sound. So it's like that it's the real deal.
Yeah.
So that experience, that we talked about with making your own tips and being and having and it was an experience at the time.
Yeah, so all that experience, those years of experience and practice with the crews, moving from graffiti to character to portraits, like you said, now you bring all that knowledge to a group of kids that you're working with the Space of Mind up in Delray Beach.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit of that side of you, what you are passing now the torch to the next generation, your knowledge, introducing the kids to the art scene, graffiti or not graffiti, but to that is, to me, it's something. I mean, now you taking care of the next generation.
Yeah. So the same thing with vinyl vision.
Yes.
It's a Vinyl Vision is not just an art show, obviously. It's an art show with an inquisitive twist, meaning that we go into the history, especially Miami, because a lot of people don't know, a lot of people don't know about Miami. They know a little bit about it, of course, but, and for the most part, I noticed that, people they just don't know. So they want to hear it from people that were there firsthand. Like I was saying that, back when I was a little kid, in Overtown from here, right where we're sitting on 44th.
Correct.
Overtown is back on 20th.
20th,
correct?
yes. Yeah, south of 20th.
Yeah. The projects that are not here 2nd Avenue, but 5th Avenue, after Manna, the projects there, okay? Those projects, back in 78, okay? The original ghetto-style DJs, okay? Meaning that, and I'll give you a description of what they were. The bins were higher than the ceiling here.
Okay.
Being interviewed. Okay. You're talking about like 15 amps, racks with fans. And I'm talking about like sky high boom, bass bins all across. And you can hear it. You can hear it. You can hear them jamming from the projects to where we are right now. Wow. You could hear the bass.
That loud.
Bass. It was just like, when they played Trans Europe Express.
Oh, yes.
You can hear it right here, bro. And I used to go down there. Very few Hispanic kids, because, my friends that were, I had a few of them that were from Overtown. And we would go on bike. And I would, they would take me in, and they're like, no. He's with us. He's with us.
Yes.
He's with us. That's the family right there. Y'all don't mess around with him, And bro, it was a freaking party, bro. Freaking party, food, man. It was just like the fried chicken and fried fish, okra.
Yeah,
they had, then you had the Jamaican. There were Jamaicans in there too. It was just a one. You're talking about, the conch fritters, and I was eating everything, bro. Everything, bro. I was in heaven, bro.
But listen, you got sidetracked because I was asking you about the kids in there.
I know. But so anyway, so it's just a learning experience. Like, I'm just a communicator.
Oh, that's
okay, just like everybody else.
But that's beautiful to share those little inside story.
And that's what it's all about. It's for the kids too, and like not only like you have different generations.
Yes.
And you want to enlighten them because they don't know. And then same thing with Bob Perry. Bob Perry had quite a few stories because he had been in Miami since the late 60s.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we're talking about way before the Bee Gees recorded,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Saturday Night, whatever. We're talking about, I'm talking about Back to Clean Up Woman and Freedom, Come On, Get Up and Dance.
Oh, yes, okay.
That, and also Dance to the Drummer's Beat, Let's Dance. Herman Kelly and Life.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So all these jams, they're from here.
Yes.
So they're Miami. That one from KRS-One, something, he's down with us, that dun 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 dun. That's Cramp Your Style. It's called the original is called Cramp Your Style by All the People. It's another Miami group. So there's so many groups from here that were part of street culture. Back to the street culture, before it was called hip hop.
Yeah.
And God bless Africa Bambaataa for naming it, I know he was a little bit upset about not trademarking it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you know that, but
no, I didn't.
Yeah, he told me because we were part of Zulu Nation back in the early 90s, and I was heavy into it, and I was traveling a lot to New York. And he told me the only mistake I made, Max, was not to trademark the name hip hop.
Yeah.
I would have been a millionaire right now because they would have had to pay me every time they utilized the name. Can you imagine that?
All right. Well,
yeah. But anyway, back to the kids. Like I said, I'm just a communicator.
Yeah.
I'm just delivering a message, because in retrospect, the history goes even further back.
Yeah.
Meaning that this whole New York, Miami connection, it didn't start in the 70s.
Of course.
It's been going on since the days of, the Rat Pack.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay. Yes.
Meaning that they were coming here. A lot of people don't know they were coming here. From here, they go to Key West. From Key West, they were driving their cars, expensive cars. They go to Key West and take a ferry. And then the ferry would drop them off in Cuba.
In Cuba, yeah.
Cling, cling. Here you go. Off you go. In your car, people showing off, before all the whole,
of course, yeah.
Castro thing, whatever. And it was the place to be. So it was another destination, So it would go from New York, Miami, down to
Key West,
Cuba.
Cuba, yes.
To Cuba. Key West to Cuba. And that relationship didn't start, like I said. People think that, oh, no, this is something that just happened recently, or it happened like during the early 80s with the Cocaine Cowboys type thing too.
Yes, that was
that's another thing.
Another era, yes.
Yeah, that's another era. But it didn't start. It started long ago, and also, people were going down there to record. You had Dizzy Gillespie. You had Dizzy Gillespie going down there and recording with some of the guys from Cuba. You had James Brown.
Yes.
Going to...
Well, they used to have a big theater in Overtown here when all these black artists would come.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because they could not stay on the beach at the time.
Oh, yeah,
so even
yeah. The Chitlin circuit was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, the Chitlin circuit was... And down here, this 2nd Avenue...
Yes.
This 2nd Avenue, back in those times, there were clubs everywhere. And meaning that this is before jukeboxes, meaning that they had to have groups, live groups.
Yeah, live music, yes.
To play music.
All right, I'm going to ask you the question one more time.
Okay.
What about those kids?
So the kids are getting
the next generation. I don't want to be the old generation.
They're getting an overload of information, meaning that if they want to start learning, if they want to scrawl, they can scrawl, But I tell them, hey, there's more to whatever than just scrawling, unleash your full potential, meaning that we try to teach them everything. And I bring different artists in to teach them about, Photoshop.
Yes.
Go
with the new technology. That's what
with the new technology.
That's what they're all about. Yes.
Exactly.
The social media.
Yeah, exactly. What's the other one with the other program? Whatever programs they
Procreate?
Yeah, Procreate.
Procreate, yes.
I tell them, look, use everything.
Of course. Experiment.
Nowadays, you got to use everything. Unleash yourself is what I tell them. Unleash yourself to your full, and then I bring different people in so that they can have a different perspective, because every different artist has a different workflow.
Oh,
so I tried to get them into the psychology of each different artist that I bring in, and they're all different, meaning that they all their outlook is different and their approach is different, and so they're getting all that plus the historical part of it, And I tell them, look, if you have any questions, ask.
Yes.
Anything, ask. If you want to learn about. I remember this one girl, she was talking to me, oh, no, because I like to bomb and stuff like that, da-da-da-da. And then I showed her, I said, look, here's this one chick, da-da-da-da, the one that started climbing, what's her name? The one that goes from the top to the bottom. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. She's a heavy bomber. But anyway, and she freaked out. I showed her that and she freaked out. She was like, what is this?
What is this?
I said, look, you asked for it. I'm going to give it to you.
That's right.
If you're asking, because, at the end of the day, I appreciate the fact that I met the people that I met and how they opened me up to certain things.
Correct. Yes.
And they were straight up about it, like, hey, here it is. Now, mind you, there was a lot of other things too that were not, how to say this, all the negative stuff. There were a few negative things, just like everything else,
Well, everything was illegal, so that was the first thing.
So I tell them, look, just take the positive attributes and don't worry about the negative attributes. And that's pretty much like, and then we also, at the end of the whole thing, we have it scheduled so that they partake in the Delray Walls thing that we do,
which is really, really cool.
Yeah, so we try to incorporate them. We try to incorporate them so that they do the last one. It didn't happen because it got a little bit. Something happened, and they were doing some sort of field trip, and they couldn't come back in time. It was something weird like that. But the ones that were previous to that, they did their own thing. They got together and they put a thing together, a mock-up, and they went up there and they sketched it and they painted it, and I was like, hey,
have a good time.
There you go.
Have a good time.
And it was, they put it inside the gallery over there and everything. So, and that's what it's, and then they have like, hey, mom, hey, dad, grandma, everybody coming out. Uncle, nieces, nephews, everybody, the whole family. Oh, look, my little kid. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. No, but it's so good to expose the children to the next generation, to art and everything. It's such a fun thing. And as we know, we mentioned that many times on the podcast, this really helps the kids when they get into that creative mode to get even better results in school and everything. So this is something very crucial for their well-being, for the education, for the children.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different things that they can get into. I mean, there's so many things going on now that it's like, a few years ago, when the heroin epidemic first started, a lot of people passed away.
Oh,
a lot of people that I knew passed away.
Yeah,
and a lot of people still haven't recovered from some of that stuff. Which is really sad because some of them were really talented, and it was so sad to like see the downfall of. So I try to steer them away, like, hey, be careful, and you can maybe if you smoke a little pot, okay, whatever, what I'm saying, or drink a little something, whatever. But when you get into weird stuff that you're injecting your body with, stuff, what I'm trying to say, like that's some whole other.
Yes.
That's another beast that you don't want to deal with. For me, like, I stopped everything cold turkey, and it's been now like maybe I can't remember how many years. It's got to be like 6 or 7 years now.
Okay.
I lost track. I don't. Oh, you want to drink? I don't drink.
You don't drink no more, yeah.
No.
All right.
Whatever,
Whatever. All right. Well, Max, thank you so much for all that beautiful insight of your story of the Miami, all these moments that you were part of it. Definitely, the name of the podcast is Write Your Narrative, and you've been writing a whole chapter in that Miami history, and this is super, super dope.
Yeah, man, thank you. I really appreciate it.
So, Max, thank you so much for that time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Max. Thank you so much again. Well, folks, this is the time we have today for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you all soon on the other side of the podcast. Thank you again. Bye-bye now.
Alrighty.